can you tell me a little about your airplane?
Yeah, I'm privileged to fly this C-53. It's basically a baseline DC-3 that they just yanked off the assembly line in Santa Monica, California, July 6, 1943. And it's powered by Wright engines now. There's 1,200 horsepower each. They're a little bit different than most other C-47s have the Pratt & Whitney 1830 engines on them. This aircraft actually is a survivor from D-Day. It actually towed gliders on D-Day, the 6th of June, 1944. It actually survived there. In 2019, we actually flew it back to England, and we basically celebrated the 75th anniversary of D-Day with it. And we got to drop paratroopers. It's still rigged up for that. I think we dropped a total of 128 paratroopers during our the Normandy 75th anniversary. Real privileged to fly this aircraft, knowing that it was actually in World War II. It actually was on D-Day, involved in D-Day. It didn't have the name back then, but when it came back, and the CAF, Commemorative Air Force, picked it up. Inland Empire Wing basically has possession of it at the moment at Riverside, California. Kind of went around and people had a contest to name it, and that's what they came up with, the D-Day doll. It was just one of many airplanes that flew, obviously, on D-Day in 1944. And we were one of 30 airplanes from the United States in 2019 for the 75th anniversary that made it all the way over there. We just today we did an honor flight for actually a Pathfinder pilot named David Hamilton, the last surviving Pathfinder pilot from D-Day. Passed away just recently at 102. He's actually lived here in Prescott, Arizona. We're going to go to a celebration of life tomorrow for that. We did a flyover of his memorial down in the Arizona National Cemetery. And here we are, going to enjoy the night here in Prescott, Arizona. Just the biggest difference with the Wright engines, it's a single row of 9 cylinders, same horsepower as a 1830 Pratt & Whitney, but only single row. So we have 9 cylinders in a single row. The Pratt & Whitneys are twin rows of 7 cylinders each, so 14 total cylinders.
So they're a twin Wasp?
Yes.
Yes. You're still painted in invasion stripes?
Yes, It's due for another paint job. It's just out in the sun in Riverside, California. The sun just beats the crap out of the paint job.
Right.
I wish we had a hangar big enough to support it. If you notice, since this is a C-53, we only have a cabin door. We never had aircraft modified, so there's no cargo doors on this airplane.
Oh.
So that's why it's basically just for either towing gliders or dropping paratroopers.
So it would have a bigger door here?
Yeah, big door, cargo door that would just open up.
Yes.
We never got that one. This is, like I said, basically a DC-3 that they yanked off the assembly line.
I was wondering why it was a different designation.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's look inside.
But you can see it's still set up for paratroopers with our bucket seats. They didn't have seat belts back then. So we usually can take 16 paratroopers now. Back in the war, they didn't care about weight and balance too much, so they could actually take about 28 paratroopers.
Wow.
You can see up here, I don't know if you can see it, this is our anchor line.
A static line?
No, well, the static line is actually what the paratroopers hook up to this.
Okay.
They call this the anchor line.
Okay.
So the paratroopers would take their static lines and hook it on here. And when we drop them, it's just like they did in World War II. All the commands are exactly the same thing. They'll tell them to stand up, hook up, check your equipment, and then stand in the door. And when it's time on target, they all go out about one every second, or 1 every 2 seconds anyway.
Wow, those guys are brave.
Yeah. Then the difference is the doors on C-47s are a little bit taller. This is a little bit smaller. So you always have to tell the paratroopers, make sure your head stays down until you're actually outside the door.
Interesting that it's that short. Huh.
Yes, because some guys will come up just as they get the door, and they'll either bounce their helmet on the top of the door, or their pack will hit it, and it tumbles them out a little bit where they don't want to go. So anyway, and this is a little bit modified too. Normally there'd be a compartment right up here, and it would house, at least on a C-47, a navigator and a radio operator. This aircraft never had a navigator. it had a radio operator, so we would have to actually fly in formation with somebody else who actually had a navigator to get like all the way across the water to get to Europe.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you can see this on this video,
yeah, I don't
but
know.
it is very steep walking up a DC-3 or a C-47 this aisle.
So our placard here, placard from Douglas Aircraft, Santa Monica, California, completed on 6th of July, 1943. Then when it came back, they basically turned it into a DC-3, they called it 202 Alpha. Just converted back to a civilian airliner.
And November of 45.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You can see this went back to Capital Airline when it came back from the war. It went to a couple different owners and stuff. And it ended up actually as a jump airplane for skydivers out of Chico, California. And then they were going around the country in someplace, Richmond, Indiana. They blew an engine and they didn't have enough money to fix it, so they left it there.
Oh.
So years went by. I can't remember exactly many years, but the CF got a hold of it or found out it was there, looked at the history of it, found out that it was actually in D-Day, the war. So they obtained the aircraft and they sent mechanics there. They had a new engine put on it and a bunch of other stuff and flew it to Riverside, California, where they restored it for a couple of years and cleaned it up and got it flying. And we've been restoring it ever since, a little bit at a time.
Wow.
But it's, you can see, for going across the North Atlantic, we needed a GPS system. Like Honeywell donated us a GPS system, which was pretty useful for us. We also had all of our iPads, and we did a lot of navigation on the iPad to get across. So we went, we all met in Oxford, Connecticut, and formed up and learned how to do formation flying in DC-3s together. And then from there, we went up to Goose Bay, Canada. And the weather was perfect when we got there to close down immediately afterwards, almost. So we were stuck there for a couple of days, extra days in Goose Bay. Then we flew to, I don't know if I can ever say this correctly, Sarsarkoak, however you pronounce it, Greenland.
Yeah.
And when we got there, it was 40 to 50 knots of wind down the runway.
Wow.
So these big wings, there's a lot of lift in them. I ended up having to do a 360 over the little bay in front of the runway so I can actually get down and land the airplane.
Wow.
And landing was fine, but trying to get off the runway was hard because you got that big rudder and tail sticking up there in the wind. And that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was the poor guys putting oil and fuel in the wings. The oil would go horizontal.
Oh.
And the fuel, you actually had to lean into the wind a little bit to keep from getting blown off the wing. Anyway, we were supposed to just pass through there, but we ended up just spending the night because the wind was just too bad. You see the dents in the side of the aircraft?
Yes, I do now.
That's when we were going across the North Atlantic. It's probably some before that too. But our props would build up ice,
Yes.
and when it got big enough, the props would sling it off, hit the side of the aircraft, and leave those indentations. It sounds like somebody's got a hammer on the outside of the aircraft pounding on it.
Wow.
Usually you have a double layer of aluminum there just for that.
Wow. That's so scary.
So then we got up the next time we went to to Iceland, Reykjavik, Iceland, spent a couple of days there, and then we went down to Kinloss, or not Kinloss, Scotland, but Prestwick, Scotland. Spent a couple nights there, and then our final destination was Duxford in England. That's where we practiced as a big group of airplanes to get ready to go to Europe and simulate the drops of 1944.
And Duxford's huge. I've been there.
Oh, beautiful. They don't call it an airport anymore. It's a museum.
Well, they have a lot of planes there.
Oh, they do.
It's a great place to visit. I highly recommend it.
It's beautiful. So we spent, about I don't know, 4 or 5 days there. Then it was time to reenact the mission. And thousands of people were there watching. It was really, really, just the excitement, I guess you would call it. And we went out across the water, followed in formation, and we dropped our first group of paratroopers.
And how many groups did you drop?
Well, on that particular day, we ended up dropping 2 groups. We actually went ahead early. There was a group over there. They wanted to drop at a Carentan, or on Carentan. So We went over to the airport, Cherbourg, stopped, picked up troopers. So we dropped 18 right there that first day, went back to Duxford, picked up our next group, and went both there. And that was actually the real ceremony of the D-Day.
Very good. I wish I could have been there. I wanted to go, but I didn't make it.
Well, you know, when we were watching, we looked at all the roads were jammed. People they spent hours trying to get to the drop zones just to watch it.
Wow.
It's really something.
And the roads are so wide over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that's a joke, people. It's unbelievable how narrow the roads are in England.
So the thing is, when we were over there, we did drops. We only had one day where it rained, so they canceled almost everything. And then since we're over there, Germany was celebrating their the 70th anniversary of the Berlin Airlift. And it was also their Armed Forces Day, also kind of a conjunction thing. So they asked us, since we're over there, can we come to Germany? So we ended up going to Germany and spent a lot of time in Wiesbaden and then other places. And our last official act was to fly around Berlin and in formation with, I forgot by that time, 13 or 14 DC-3s.
What an experience.
Yeah. And we ended up breaking off and we landed at an airport there, and then we took a train right into Berlin, spent some days just touring around in Berlin. And then on the way home, we, of all things, stopped by the Paris Air Show, and we actually got to fly this airplane in the Paris Air Show.
Man, you had quite an experience.
Oh, man, yeah. I was gone for 2 months.
2 months?
2 months.
Wow.
And then got home, and we stopped at the EAA.
In Oshkosh?
Yeah, Oshkosh in 2019. And again, kind of celebrated as what they call the DD Squadron. That was all the DC-3s combined. And just flew a couple, missions there, if you want to call it that, and then came home finally.
Well, this is a very iconic airplane.
Oh, yeah. And the plane ran great. We had very few problems. When you're flying over the North Atlantic and you look down, it looks so cold.
Yes.
And, basically each leg ended up being about five and a half hours, basically.
Wow. Over
that cold water. And, you're flying at that time in a 75-year-old airplane. So this is the cockpit of our C-53. To go across the North Atlantic, we got the Bendix King. It's a 770, they call it, donated to us, which was great. But then our flight instruments weren't up to speed. The gyros weren't very good. The RMIs weren't very good. Everything drifted. So we decided to put some Garmin G5s in. And we tried to tie them in to the GPS. But Bendix King and Garmin don't talk to each other.
Right.
So because of that, we ended up having to put this Garmin radio in. It doesn't have GPS. I guess it has a function that we haven't just taken advantage of yet. So this radio basically controls what information goes into the Garmin's. This GPS from Bendix King sends information to that little instrument right there. So we've got backup ILSs and just one GPS type of approach. We have fuel gauges, but ours never work. And if you're flying a DC-3, very hard to actually trust a fuel gauge. So we always do everything by timing. We burn basically 100 gallons an hour, and we can probably burn a little bit less than that when we're good. But it's better to just plan to burn 100 gallons an hour. So obviously, we have RPM gauge here, and our manifold pressure gauges up here. It's one of the things I like about our airplane. These gauges are up here. If you see a lot of other C-47s, the gauges are down here. So if you're, especially on a takeoff roll, you can right here just glance down and see all that stuff. But if they're down there, you got to take a little bit extra time just to see where you stand with that instrument's way down there. So I actually like our setup.
And this is a tailwheel airplane. You need to pay attention when you're on the ground.
Yes. Yep.
Well, the visibility out over the nose is great.
Oh, yeah. It's really good. Unless some idiot pulls up right directly in front of you that you can't see. But other than that, normally you have to zigzag down the taxiway of the tailwheel. Not with this plane. We can see plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. We just, when we went across the pond, we just want to make sure that we can trust everything that's in this cockpit.
Correct.
Because it's just, we had to try on these poopy suits.
Oh.
One size fits all. And you're supposed to get into them in like 3 minutes. Well, it took at least 5. to get the suits on. So it's like, yeah, the ditching in that North Atlantic, not a really good idea.
These are things you don't normally hear.
No, yeah, yeah. So when we were in Oxford, Connecticut, we had a Coast Guard officer with us who was doing the training and stuff, and we actually went into a lake in Oxford, north of Oxford. I forgot the name of it now, and actually got in the water with our poopy suits on, and actually entered rafts for practice to see that we could do it.
Yeah.
But it's something nobody wanted to try for real. And beautiful as it was, every airplane made it there, every airplane made it back.
Wow. And were you in the branch of the service?
I was a Navy guy.
Navy. What did you fly in the Navy?
I flew P-3s mostly. That was my primary plane. I got a lot of training command time in T-34 Charlies, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of King Air time going from base to base.
Yeah.
But mostly P-3s. Jacksonville, Florida, one tour, and then Barbers Point, Hawaii, second tour.
And what engines did the P-3s have on them?
The T-56 Allison. It's a turboprop.
Okay, it had how many of those?
4.
4.
Yep. It was a P-3. It's based on the Orion, or I'm sorry, that was the Navy called the Orion. I forget, the Lockheed Electra was the base frame for that aircraft.
I believe, I could be mistaken, they flew those out of here for fires.
Oh
for a while.
yeah. They've converted a lot of P-3s into tankers.
Yes.
I haven't seen a lot of them lately, but
No, they're aging out too.
yeah, yep. And enjoyed that airplane. It could do all sorts of things that turboprops are known for.
Yes.
Other than that, it's mostly a hydraulic airplane.
Yeah.
Very little electronics on it except for radios. But when we turn everything on, you can hardly see any load whatsoever. The generator's like 200 amp hours.
Wow.
You've got one on each engine, so we have a lot of extra power that we don't need. But like I said, everything is pretty much hydraulic on this aircraft. Not the flight controls. That's all manual muscle.
Trim.
Yeah. Trim will help you fly this airplane.
It's a trim airplane. Yeah.
Well, they told me in the old days, and I don't know whether this is true, that professional DC-3 pilots, when they're flying along, they could determine the weight of the flight attendant by how much trim they had to set as she came forward with coffee or whatever.
Wow.
So they would always try to guess her weight. That's probably not a good idea anymore.
Probably not politically correct, but
No.
it was fun.
No. So a lot of guys will fly by the trim now. So, I mean, they'll hold the control column, but they'll just basically be using the elevator trim.
Right.
This is very sensitive elevator trim and rudder. Aileron, maybe not so much. To get full throw of the aileron, because it's locked right now, I can't show you. But this control column, I got to turn it all the way 180 degrees to get full control. So landing in a crosswind, just a little bit more interesting.
Now tell me about the locking tail wheel. I'm curious as a pilot, landing and taking off with your locking tail wheel. How does that work?
Okay, to maintain directional control during takeoff and landing, we always lock the tail wheel. You want it straight with the aircraft. It helps for stability when you touch down and helps you keep on center line. So I don't know if you can see it, but down here, and ours is a little bit different because it's got 2 knobs on it. Right now it's in the locked position. If you pull it back and toward me, there's a little notch it locks in. That unlocks the tail wheel.
I see.
So you do that for when you're making tight turns, like coming into a parking lot or whatever. But to help you, like on taxiway, especially if there's a strong wind, you lock the tail wheel. That helps you maintain directional control. You can taxi without it. It's just a little bit more work. Okay, one thing different about our airplane is on the control pedestal, we have carburetor heat here. Normally this is where your mixture controls are. But because we're backwards, like a Boeing B-17, of course they have the same engines as we do, is that they've moved the mixture controls up here to the left foot, the left knee of my co-pilot. And you can see, right now they're full forward. Normally that's auto rich in most reciprocal type radial engine airplane. But for us, that's auto cutoff. Same thing to B-17. So for us to go rich, we have to pull it all the way back. If I'm flying a different airplane like with the Pratt & Whitney and it's normal, I have to think about what direction to move that control if I'm going to either go to rich or idle cutoff. Kind of embarrassing if you're in midair and you shut an engine down and you didn't mean it because you moved that control in the wrong direction. So that's one of the big differences in this airplane compared to other people's. Plus, it's a little bit more mechanical than other people. Our battery switch, old style, is this thing right here, this knob. I don't know if you can see it. This is our battery switch. If I push it down and go back, that's on battery. If I push it down and go forward, it's on GPO, if they plug us in. So, again, a lot of mechanical things that other people have gone electric with. But for us, it's just not worth it. Let's see. Oh, the other thing, too, is our oil and hydraulic shutoff switches. You can see they're all mechanical.
Yes.
A lot of guys will have electric switches now that will open and close those valves.
And this is set up like an original.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The CU was painted on the nose of the aircraft of the different squadrons that were over there. I mean, they were talking about over 800 of these. He called everything a C-47 just to make it easy, even though, like I said, ours is a C-53. But the CU stands for the 72nd Squadron of the 434th Troop Carrier Group. So it was a specific squadron. That was the initials that identified each aircraft from that 72nd Troop Carrier Squadron. Right now, that squadron still exists. It's now an air refueling squadron in Grissom Air Force Base in, I think it's Indiana.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of conversation back and forth, and they actually want us to come there next year for a celebration if we can make it, but it'd be a blast to show up with this airplane.
Yes, it would.
We actually had a squadron come out to March Air Force Base, and they came over and visited us, and they were just thrilled because they have all this history of what happened in D-Day, basically, with the 72nd Squadron, which is really interesting reading. So there's only 2 squadrons now that still exist back in Grissom Air Force Base, the 72nd and the 74th. The 74th, one of the aircraft that actually was our leader going over to Europe in 2019, it's called Placid Lassie C-47. They were actually in our troop carrier group. And when we flew over Bastogne in formation, the last time these 2 airplanes might have flown together was relieving Bastogne in the fall of 1944.
Wow.
So, I mean, that kind of sends chills.
It does.
Up and down my spine thinking about it. But here we are, right over Bastogne, thinking, man, could have been.
Yes.
Could have been.
Unbelievably cool.